I want to talk about the reason why you might not be healing. And it's a bit of a hard one to actually understand and get a grip on if you are struggling, because you might watch this video and just think, no, it's not for you. And if you do, I totally understand, because I also was exactly the same when I was in my journey. It took me a while to understand how important this was. And when I did and I started doing the work, I realized that I should have done it ages ago. So, what I'm going to discuss today is going to be your mindset. So, unfortunately, we are living in a world where we are taught to chase a diagnosis or a label. So, I know for me personally, if any of you have seen my story, you'll know that I got diagnosed with interstitial cystitis. It was 2019, and as soon as I got the diagnosis and I researched it, and despite the fact that I didn't actually feel any different when I had the diagnosis to the months before, my mindset was completely different. I felt really depressed after that. The more I researched into it, the more I saw things about there not being a cure. The options were antidepressants, long-term antibiotics, and finding a way to live with it. And there was even people who were on disability for it. And at this time, I was only 24, so I just bought a house, just moved in with my partner. At some stage, we wanted to have a baby. I was really scared that these things weren't going to be a thing for me. I was like, is my partner going to leave me? Are my friends going to not want to hang out with me because I can't do much? Like, I just felt like I was not enjoyable to be around. And you read these horror stories and you start to believe that that is going to be your story. And this is what I did for almost a year, I believe. I was constantly, and I was really negative to be around. I was depressed. And I'm not ashamed to say that now that I've healed. But looking back now, I wish I could just hug that girl. I wish I could just be like, everything was going to be okay. And when I see people that are suffering from this, it really does break my heart. I saw a post just the other day of a girl, and she was saying that she had just been diagnosed and she was wanting a little bit of help. She didn't know where to start and she was asking for advice. And the first and only comment on the post said, I've had this for over 20 years. I have been on amitriptyline, which is an antidepressant, low dose for years. Nothing works. I'm on disability. I lost my job pretty much because I just couldn't go to work. And it was pretty much just a there's no hope for you comment. And I just was like, I wanted to just hop in there, but I just thought I did say like there is a hope. You can run some functional labs, but I'm not going to argue with people. Like, the beliefs that we create are based off things that we read, and it's the same with anything in life. A lot of beliefs that we have growing up are things from our parents or the way we were raised and all of these things. But when I was in my healing journey, my coach used to say to me about starting the mindset work and how important it was. And at the time, I just thought, no, it wasn't for me. I just thought my only issue is the pain that I have. Other than that, my life is good. And that was what I truly believed. So she just said, okay, like, you're obviously not ready for this part in your journey. And you might be watching this now thinking that your mindset is no issue. And if it's not, totally okay. I understand it. You don't have to keep watching this video. But if you are watching and you're thinking that, okay, maybe this is resonating with you, because I know it really did for me. It really made a difference when I got to my healing journey and I wanted to actually start healing. And when I started actually doing the work, and I started convincing myself that I was going to heal, I was going to get out of it. I was like, I'm working with a practitioner. I'm doing the labs. I'm doing everything right. Why wouldn't it work for me? But prior to that, when I first signed up with my coach, I was like, it's probably not going to work for me. I've worked with someone, a naturopath, for 6 months prior. Nothing's worked. I spent all this money. I'm constantly saying that there's no cure. And that's what I believed. So when you're constantly telling yourself something, like I was constantly like, I'm sick, I have this, the label I gave myself from interstitial cystitis, it became a part of my identity. I was no longer just Emily. I was like Emily with interstitial cystitis. And there was like a really hard spot for me to pull myself away from that label. It was, who am I now if I don't have this? What am I? Who do I want to be if I am not sick? What do I want to do? And that's the importance of the mindset work, is really like diving into your why. What is your driver for getting better? Because you need a driver. And I hate to say it, but being that you want to just go back to the life you lived before probably isn't going to be enough. For me, I wanted to have a baby at some point. That was my driver. was really, really scared that I was never going to be able to have a family if I was sick, because there is no way I couldn't look after myself. There was no way I was going to be able to look after a kid. And I was so negative and didn't really want to do anything. It just was not going to be a good mindset to raise a baby in either. So that was my driver. And when I had that driver and I started working on, was doing the mindset work, I constantly would tell myself, like, I'm going to get better. I'm doing the work. I was making all the right steps into healing. I just convinced myself that it was happening for me. And you know what? It started happening for me, not just based off my mindset. I was doing the work, I was running the labs, supporting my body where I needed it, but because I was really positive and I knew that I was going to heal, I was like, this is going to work for me. And if I had a little bit of pain, if I ate something that bothered me, if I was having a down day, I could pull myself out of it because I was like, it's just a bad day. I'm going to heal. Whereas prior to that, I would be like, that's not working for me. This isn't working for me. And I used to message my coach at the time and I would say things like that. I would say, I don't think it's going to work for me. And she would say that in the mindset work, she told me, she would always say, you need to start the mindset work. And I'm really grateful that she did. She was on my case. And when I started it, I remember watching a video and it was about accepting the part you play in your own suffering. And when I first watched that, I felt a little bit triggered by it. I felt a little bit insulted. I was like, I didn't do this to myself. I didn't get myself here. I didn't want this. You know, those feelings are natural and they are valid, because you might not have intentionally got yourself here. There might have been things that you have done in your life unintentionally. Like for me, I had had a lot of rounds of antibiotics and I didn't know what that was going to do to my gut bacteria. I didn't know that was going to wipe out my gut bacteria that breaks down oxalates. So without knowing all of those things, I didn't intentionally get myself sick. But there was things that I did do in my past. That I used to drink a lot as well. I used to start really late. I used to take drugs when I was younger. I, you know, didn't eat very well. There was a lot of parts that I did do that probably contributed to me getting sick. So, really accepting the part that you play in your own suffering is giving yourself the power. And, you know, another example of that is I was in a really bad relationship for a few years and it was pretty bad. Looking back now, I'm like, wow, but obviously I've healed from it now and, you know, wish this guy well. But after we broke up, I blamed this guy for everything. I blamed him for the way I felt about the world, the way I thought about myself, didn't feel worthy of love, the way I felt about men. I just thought everybody was out to screw you over. And the more you love someone, the more they're going to hurt you. I had all these really negative beliefs based off how he had treated me. And when I started doing the mindset work and looking into it and, you know, accepting the part that I played in my own suffering, I look back at that now and I'm like, it wasn't his fault. It was actually me. I allowed it to happen to me because I didn't say I'm not tolerating this. I stayed for years. And then by the end of it, I just was so convinced that I wanted this guy to be who I needed him to be. And I think I always knew, like subconsciously, I never wanted to marry this guy. I never wanted to have a family with this guy. I knew it was going to end, but when I was in it, I think I was just like, okay, like he might change, you know, as you do when you're young. And when we broke up, yeah, everything that happened to me, it could literally be like, oh, I don't even know. I could, like, my car could break down, and somehow I would probably convince myself that this was like I was having such a bad day because of how he made me feel. And that was, you know, when you blame other people, you are giving your power away. You need to acknowledge and accept the part that you were playing in your own suffering. And when I got diagnosed with IC, the part that I was playing in my own suffering is I was constantly feeding myself negative thoughts. And I was constantly reading these things about how I was never going to get better and I was always going to stay sick and I might lose my partner and I'm never going to be able to have a baby. And I really believed these thoughts. And when you stop believing them and you just accept the part that you're playing in your own suffering and you're like, you know what, I'm bored of this narrative, because that's what I did. I started watching the mindset work, and when I started getting into it, I started journaling, I started getting all my emotions out, I started to believe that I was going to truly heal. It started feeling better, and I just started feeling like I was going to be okay and I was going to have a family and I was going to be happy and I was going to heal. And it worked for me. I actually have a little boy now. He is 1.5. And sometimes I actually look at him and I just remember about those days where I was so scared I was never going to be able to have a family. And, you know, I feel so grateful that I was able to heal from this and I was able to work with a practitioner to run the labs and get my body supported to what it needs. And also from that, like, IC was the worst thing that I've ever been through in my life. It was insanely painful. I could not even describe it. You know, if you have IC and you're watching this, you know what it's like. It is horrible. Um, but I also believe that it is actually one of the best things that happened to me, because it not only fueled me into this like space of like blaming people for how I feel all the time, and I was really in like a victim mentality with a lot of things in my life. And now I'm at this point where I'm like, okay, am I doing this to myself? Am I causing these thoughts? When I feel negative, I can actually sit there and be like, okay, Emily, you're doing this to yourself now. You are creating the spiral that you're going down. And I'm very self aware now of my thoughts and my feelings and what I want. And also, it gave me passion and purpose for what I want to do with my life. Like, I really want to help other people. It really drove me into wanting to be a practitioner, because I really want to help other people now. You know, IC holds a very special spot in my heart because I went through it and I know how horrible it is. Anything you're suffering with is incredibly horrific, but I want you to understand the importance of your mindset. We need to be feeding ourselves positive thoughts. We need to be working on our mindset. And it's deeper than just, you know, getting up and being like, I am grateful for my life. You know, that is amazing. It's great to say those things, but we need to go a little bit deeper. We need to figure out your why. What is your driver for healing? What gets you up in the morning? Who are you going to be if you're not sick? We need to pull you away from this label. You're no longer Emily with IC. You're Emily who might experience some pelvic pain and you're working on healing. We need to get you to this place of serenity and peace and calm so you can focus on healing. Because, like I said earlier, when your body is in a fear or flight state of mind, you just can't heal. So, I truly believe that this is a massive part that influences people on not healing, and really something that we do need to dive into. And that's why we do focus on that at the beginning of the program, because it is really important.